Previous chapter brilliantly juxtaposes the Han's meticulous empire building, right down to the leader's new smart home, with Mao Dun's scrambling survival tactics. We see the Han leader meticulously planning his sprawling new villa, a symbol of their growing stability and sophistication, complete with custom carbide lamps and plans for a sunroom. Then bam! We're thrown into the desperate camp of Mao Dun, forced by hunger and defeat to send his newly adopted son, Dalantai, on a high-stakes mission, disguise themselves to trade for bare necessities in the very Han city they aim to destroy. It's the sheer audacity and desperation. Dalantai, full of his own schemes for profit, thinks he's being cunning by scouting Caillouan. The irony is palpable as he's guided by a Han child, a product of the very system he's meant to undermine, and starts buying everything from carts to alfalfa seeds. You truly feel the magnetic pull of the Han's organized prosperity versus the raiders' crumbling world. How much of Dalantai's intelligence will be genuine, and how much will be subtly shaped by Han design, or even his own greed? This intricate dance of desperation and design is just riveting. The Han tribe actually has such good things. The young guide successfully piqued Dalantai's curiosity. With the attitude of wanting to broaden his horizons regardless of whether he bought anything or not, Dalantai had the youth take him to the shop that sold lamps. The lamp was quickly brought out. The shopkeeper even demonstrated its operation on the spot. Looking at the handheld lamp before him, which emitted a strong yellow light, Dalantai was shocked, deeply impressed, and very much wanted it. Does this thing only need stones and water to light up? Dalantai was already preparing to buy, but of course, before buying, he had to clearly inquire about its use after purchase. Any clean water will do, but the stones aren't ordinary stones. This is called Dianshi, electric stone. Only our Han tribe can produce it, so you can only buy it here, the shopkeeper explained, while the youth beside him translated. Oh, Dalantai hesitated. The stones used for lighting the lamp were controlled by the Han tribe, and whether he could buy them next time was a problem. Without those special stones, the lamp would be useless. So, should he buy it or not? After considering for a long time, Dalantai still liked it very much. Finally, he made up his mind, gritted his teeth, and bought it. He could just buy a bit more Dianshi at once. Anyway, he had money now. As for next time, at worst, he could send someone to buy more. If that really didn't work, he could still buy some second-hand from other tribes. After all, they weren't the only ones on the steppe who had bought Dianshi lamps. Having made up his mind, Dalantai quickly purchased a batch of Dianshi lamps, a full 100 of them, nearly buying out Caillouan City's entire stock. With the remaining money, he bought a 2-horse, shaft-drawn flatbed cart, and finally loaded it with a full cartload of Dianshi. After they finished buying the Dianshi lamps, the youth continued to take Dalantai shopping. Seeing that Dalantai and his group were still wearing felt boots made by the herdsmen themselves, he recommended the Han tribe's leather boots to Dalantai. Leather boots were also one of the hottest-selling commodities in Caillouan Prefecture. Not only did they purchase livestock from the herdsmen here, but they also bought byproducts like cowhides, cattle horns, beef tendons, sheepskins, and wool. Some were taken back to make bows and arrows. Some were woven into woolen cloth. The cowhides and sheepskins were also made into various leather belts, leather satchels, leather clothes, and leather boots, sold throughout the Han tribe's territories. Sales here on the steppe were also enormous. For this reason, Caillouan City even specially supported a group of leather artisans and established Caillouan Prefecture's first government-run factory. Dalantai didn't hesitate. He bought 2 pairs for each of the men who had accompanied him this time, 1 pair of unlined shoes and 1 pair of fleece-lined winter boots. He also bought some for his acquaintances and family. After buying everything he needed, the little over 100 wen remaining were used to pay the young guide's service fee. Then he led his men to a hearty lunch and bought some dry rations for the road. With that, all the money was spent. Not a single copper coin was left. Before it got dark, and without the Han tribe side noticing, Dalantai and his group set off on their return journey, driving 4 horse carts laden with goods. Meanwhile, the young guide, happily jingling 3 silver yuan in his hand, tucked the money into a small cloth pouch worn close to his body. Holding the stack of transaction vouchers Dalantai had used for his purchases, the youth began to run, from shop to collect his rewards. The cart seller, the shoe seller, the cloth seller, the lamp seller, wherever he had led people, each shopkeeper would give him some small change as a reward. It wasn't much, just a jiao, a tenth of a yuan or 2. Some only gave a few wen copper coins. It was a token of thanks for helping introduce customers. A few wen was enough for a full meal. After making his rounds, he collected over another yuan. Adding the 3 yuan Dalantai had given him, he had more than 4 yuan in total. This was equivalent to 4 days' wages for an ordinary craftsman. For a boy just over 10 years old, this was definitely a huge sum. Taking a cut from both the buyer and the seller, some might call it unscrupulous, but no one thought so. He earned the money through his own abilities, neither stealing nor robbing. Why should anyone look down on him? Of course, some were envious of such easily earned money, but this line of work wasn't something just anyone could do. Although the authorities didn't regulate it, the personal requirements were very high. Firstly, one had to be bilingual in the Han and herdsman's languages. One also needed to be bold, quick-witted, and adept at reading people and situations. Even so, they couldn't earn money from just anyone. They could only find customers who were visiting Caillouan City for the first time and were unfamiliar with everything. After a few visits, once people became familiar with the trading procedures, no fool would be willing to spend that unnecessary money again. After all, 2 or 3 wen was no small sum for a herdsman. It could buy many things here. The reason the authorities didn't intervene was that the Han tribe itself currently lacked translators bilingual in the Han and herdsman's languages. If communication was impossible, how could business be done? So the presence of these individuals actually helped promote commerce in Caillouan Prefecture. Besides, given the current trend, these people wouldn't last long. Once the herdsmen became familiar with Caillouan City, there would naturally be no room for them to survive. On the same afternoon that Dalantai began his journey back, a brief farewell was taking place at the pier near the lake in Caillouan City. Niu Wei, as a representative of the Han tribe, was seeing off elder Niu Wei, who was in charge of trade for the Xin Tribe. Niu Wei had been here for 3 days. He had toured the city and visited the markets outside the city. He had also heard Niu Wei explain the Han tribe's idea to build an outer city wall around the existing Caillouan city, which would eventually incorporate the markets on both sides. The Han tribe was powerful and growing ever stronger. Its influence on the steppe was deepening daily. Many tribes from far away from Caillouan City made arduous journeys to buy goods. Herdsmen were exchanging the livestock they depended on for survival. For the Han tribe's currency, he didn't know what this signified, but he knew that the young and ambitious leader of the Han tribe must be employing some strategy. The Xin tribe could forget about trying to meddle in the affairs of the steppe in the future, unless permitted by the Han tribe. Just like the white salt the Han tribe now sold to the steppe herdsmen, it was actually sea salt produced by their Xin tribe. Because of their trade relationship with the Han tribe, the sea salt produced on Judao, Bamboo Island, could now only be sold entirely to the Han tribe, who then used this salt, their salt, to make money on the steppe. Having seen all this, Niu Wei no longer had the leisure to stay. The Han tribe was developing too quickly. He didn't know how far your plans had progressed, nor how much time he himself had left. He had to hurry back. There wasn't much time left for him. The matter of defecting to the Han tribe should be done, sooner rather than later. The more your plans neared completion, the lower Niu Wei's utility value would become. The later it got, the fewer bargaining chips he would hold, and the benefits he could exchange them for would depreciate. So he was very anxious. His original plan to stay for a week had only lasted 3 days before he felt he couldn't stay any longer. Boarding the large sailboat home from the jetty, Niu Wei stood on the deck by the ship's rail and clasped his hands in a bow towards Ying Rui. He was now dressed in Han tribe attire, his hair tied up and adorned with a bone hairpin. His manner of clasping hands and bowing was quite proper, a clear sign that his more than a year spent as a student abroad had not been in vain. Prefect Ying, there's no need to see me off further. Niu Wei will return before long. At that time, I will surely bring some local specialties from my homeland for Prefect Ying. Ying Rui, also standing on the dock, returned the courtesy from afar, saying, Elder Niu, rest assured, next time you come, I, Ying, will certainly host a banquet for you. We will use the Han tribe's finest wine to entertain you. I also wish Elder Niu a smooth journey. The two exchanged farewell bows. The sailors on board, shouting calls, hoisted the giant sails. The enormous three-masted sailboat began to move slowly, gradually departing from the Caillouan prefecture. Pier. This time, a total of 4 three-masted multi-decked ships were heading to Judao. Besides taking Niu Wei back, the ships also carried many artisans, as well as a large quantity of supplies and materials. Judao's resources were relatively abundant, but it currently lacked iron. The mission was short on many urgently needed tools. You had no choice but to send some blacksmiths, along with blacksmithing tools and a large quantity of iron ingots. Since Xingang Prefecture, Dongxin Prefecture, and the coking plant, these 3 places began operating normally. The Han tribe had never lacked iron. Therefore, sending some to Judao didn't pain you, as it was still for your own people's use anyway. For one thing, he had Shu Ya prepare on Judao the stone bricks for constructing the lighthouse. This work required many tools like crowbars, steel chisels, and sledgehammers. These were all things the mission currently lacked, so a batch had to be transported over quickly. In addition to this, the ships carried numerous artisans from other trades. They also brought some new types of hemp seeds, intended for large-scale cultivation on Judao, as well as some newly developed hemp rope-making machines from the Han tribe. These were actually simple wooden mechanisms for twisting hemp rope, equipped with a crank handle that could be used to twist thicker ropes, primarily rigging like ship cables. All these would be produced on Judao. That vigorously developing the fishing industry in the future was a keynote you had already set. Therefore, whether for shipbuilding, net weaving, or sail-making, a large reserve of materials was temporarily needed. The Han tribe was already struggling to grow enough grain. How could they possibly allocate so much land to cultivating hemp? It was better to move these inedible crops to Judao. After all, they needed fishing nets for their fishing industry there too. Late in the 9th month of the first year of the Han tribe's new era, this was the first time Niu Wei, in all his life, had gone out to sea by boat. White clouds drifted across the deep blue sky, the sun hung high at its zenith, and the light blue seawater rippled with the waves. The sea breeze was a bit salty, filling the sails and propelling the ship forward, cleaving through the waves. Flocks of white seabirds circled low in the sky. From time to time, one would dive sharply and in an instant emerge from the sea with a silver hairtail fish in its beak, soaring once more with outstretched wings. Some, tired from flying, would land on the tall ship's rail to rest for a moment, only to be knocked down by a bare-chested sailor with a club, capturing both fish and bird. Ha 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 ha. We'll have silver fish and bird stew for lunch. Remember to pluck the flight feathers from the wings. Those are used for fletching arrows and can be sold for money. I know, don't worry. The sailor skillfully prepared his catch. Niu Wei stood at the bow, watching them with envy. Then he burped and patted his stomach. After several days sailing on the sea, he realized he had even put on weight. The food resources at sea were truly abundant. Whether it was fish in the water or birds in the sky, as long as you had a boat, you wouldn't have to worry about not making money, because no matter what you did, you could easily support a group of people. Unfortunately, this was a privilege of the Han tribe. They had been at sea for 2 days. The late September weather was crisp and clear, typical of autumn. The windy and rainy seasons had passed. This was the best time of the year. Many types of fish in the sea were in their mating and spawning season. At this time, the fish were at their fattest, and they also liked to gather in schools. Niu Wei himself had seen Han tribe sailors casually cast a net and pull up a net full of silver fish from the sea. It was so heavy that several men couldn't haul it in. Finally, they had to use ropes and pulleys from the ship to bring it aboard. The hundreds of people on the 4 ships ate for 2 days and still couldn't finish it all. There was just too much, and it was so delicious. If only the Xin tribe also had ships. Well, the Xin tribe couldn't possibly have ships anymore, because it wouldn't be long before even the Xin tribe itself would be gone. This was something Niu Wei had only realized in the last 2 days, because considering it from the Han tribe's perspective, sea fishing was simply too profitable. If he were the Han tribe's leader, he would definitely decide to vigorously develop the ocean fishing industry. However, the Han tribe's inland geographical location was too far from the coast. Therefore, to engage in large-scale fishing, they had to build a forward base near the sea. Judao was the best choice. They just needed to make it Han tribe territory. This was the simplest and quickest way. So adding this reason, the Han tribe's attitude towards the Xin tribe could only be described as being absolutely determined to obtain it. Perhaps from now on, he should consider matters from the Han tribe's perspective. He wondered what methods could enable the Han tribe to rule Judao more quickly. Niu Wei stood at the bow, thinking for a long time. Until someone called him for a meal, he couldn't come up with any concrete ideas, because he suddenly realized that he actually didn't understand the Xin tribe anymore. He hadn't been back for over a year, and he didn't know what the Xin tribe had become under the Han tribe's interference. Setting aside those chaotic thoughts, one shouldn't overthink while eating. Was the rice suddenly not delicious, or the fish not fragrant? He heartily ate another Han tribe meal. The feeling of eating for free was truly wonderful. Niu Wei lay down on a straw mat spread on the bow, basking in the warm midday sun, and soon began to snore. The fleet continued its voyage for 7 more days, finally arriving at the mouth of the Clearwater River on Judao on the afternoon of Max, the 8th day after departure, which was also the location of the Han tribe mission's encampment on Judao. Shu Ya had already received advance notice and came personally with some officials from the mission to greet them. Of course, it wasn't to welcome Niu Wei, but rather to welcome the artisans and supplies that had come from a great distance to assist him in his work. The mission had a lot of work to do, and they were desperately short of tools. As for Niu Wei, welcoming him was merely an incidental task. After disembarking, Niu Wei didn't go straight home. He planned to stay at the Han tribe mission for a few days, to observe first and then decide. Watching Shu Ya direct the crowd as they continuously unloaded supplies from the ships, though very tired, everyone was beaming with joy. They had truly waited a long time for this day. Iron ingots were hoisted down basket by basket, followed by various tools and large quantities of coins packed in hemp sacks. The mission was to establish a bank on Judao and issue Han tribe currency. This had been decided long ago, and now it was finally beginning. Perhaps in the future they might even open a mint on Judao. And so, Niu Wei's thoughts began to wander. If the Han tribe wanted to promote its currency on Judao, then relying on continuous transportation from the mainland was unrealistic. Judao's population was not much smaller than the Han tribes, and the amount of currency needed would be enormous. Therefore, building a mint on Judao in the future was almost a certainty. But once the Han tribe promoted its currency on Judao, what would be the Xin tribe's reaction? Would they resist, or would they also issue their own currency? After all, the Xin tribe also had copper, and in considerable amounts. Their bronze casting craftsmanship was not inferior either. Although they couldn't produce the Han tribe's exquisite stamped and patterned coins, casting some coins with characters on them would not be a problem. So one couldn't rule out the possibility of the Xin tribe minting its own coins. But if that happened, would the Xin tribe prohibit the circulation of Han tribe currency on Judao? Would the Han Tribe's bank recognize the value of Xin Tribe coins? What reactions would each side have? And what could he do in this situation to gain some benefit? Niu Wei, who had been exposed to currency in the Han Tribe for over a year, had a certain understanding of its uses and circulation processes. If the Han Tribe promoted brass currency on Judao, then they would certainly have to acknowledge the value of Xin Tribe's bronze items, because both were essentially made of the same material. Your copper is money, so why isn't my copper valuable? If you don't acknowledge the value of my bronze items, it's tantamount to telling others that your own copper coins are worthless. This was an unavoidable issue. So what exactly would the Han Tribe do to resolve such a problem? If this issue wasn't resolved, the Han Tribe's currency definitely couldn't be promoted. But if they acknowledged the value of Xin Tribe's bronze items, and people brought their own bronze hose to the Han Tribe mission to exchange for goods or coins, would the Han Tribe make the exchange or not? If they didn't exchange, promotion would be impossible. If they did, the Han Tribe would surely suffer huge losses. What should be done? Perhaps he should go talk to the great chieftain, persuade him not to cause trouble for the Han Tribe. The two tribes were currently in a honeymoon period of cooperation. It would be better not to ruin the relationship over such a matter. Right now, they should seize the opportunity to develop themselves properly. He didn't know if the great chieftain would believe him if he said this, or if he would agree. This matter couldn't be rushed. No. He had to go talk to Shu Ya, ask him about the Han Tribe's plans, and whether they needed his cooperation. It seemed it was time to make his stance clear. Time waits for no one. Seeing that unloading the supplies would still take quite some time, Niu Wei had no mind to wait idly, so he found someone to guide him, to show him around the mission's encampment for a look. More than half a year had passed, and the encampment here had already become like a small city. It just hadn't built city walls. The rest, houses, dwellings, shops, markets, warehouses, docks, factories, government offices, and even a bank built of stone bricks, were all impressively established. All that was missing now was a school, and then a surrounding wall, and it would be no different from the cities in the Han Tribe's heartland. As for why no school had been built, considering that the Han Tribe itself didn't have enough paper, and Judao's own paper production was still in the material preparation stage, even if they built a school, how could students be able to study? But why hadn't the mission built city walls? Perhaps they still wanted to expand the scale of this encampment, Niu Wei thought. The market established by the mission was very crowded. Groups of local indigenous people came to buy and sell. They brought chickens and eggs they had raised themselves, or carried grain on shoulder poles to sell. Some also came to sell livestock, mainly sheep and pigs, which were the most common livestock and poultry for ordinary households. Many things could be exchanged here, though mostly small tools, like needles and thread. Because the Xin Tribe didn't produce them, they could only buy them here. Some people, wanting to buy needles, would bring a whole pig to trade. The mission staff would say they had no small change and couldn't break it down, making the sale impossible. The indigenous person selling the pig would then demand to exchange the entire pig for needles and thread, which he would then carry home to divide or trade with his fellow villagers. Anyone wanting to get goods from him would have to trade other items for them. The needles and thread in the mission's possession had evidently become like a form of currency, and were surprisingly beginning to be exchanged and circulated as items that held their value. Shu Ya was somewhat surprised by Niu Wei's sudden appearance, but also a little shocked. A few days ago, before Niu Wei had returned, the chieftain had sent him a letter saying that Niu Wei might come looking for him, and even mentioned what it might be about. At first, he didn't believe it. He hadn't expected Niu Wei to actually show up at his door now. How could he not be shocked? The chieftain is becoming more and more prescient. Shu Ya marveled inwardly. I have time. Weren't today's matters just settled? I haven't had dinner yet. Elder Niu, why don't you join me? A few cases of white liquor were just unloaded from the ship. I haven't tried it yet. Let's taste it together? Shu Ya invited with a grin. Old fox. Niu Wei couldn't help but curse inwardly. Seeing Shu Ya like this, it was obvious he had known all along that Niu Wei would come looking for him. Alas, it must have been that Han chieftain who told him. The Han chieftain was too formidable. He had long since figured Niu Wei out completely. It seemed that even if he wanted to turn back now, it would be difficult. It would be disrespectful to refuse, Niu Wei said, cupping his hands while holding the Dianshi lamp. The two went together to the main room in the inner courtyard of the mission's official residence. Shu Ya ordered the kitchen staff to prepare dinner and had someone fetch a bottle of liquor. The Dianshi lamp was hung on a pillar in the main hall, illuminating the entire room. After placing fried peanuts on the table and pouring Niu Wei a small cup of liquor, Shu Ya finally asked, "Elder Niu, what matter brings you to me?" Niu Wei thought to himself, "You're still pretending at this point?" However, he didn't expose him. That would only make himself look worse. After all, what he was about to do was essentially betraying his master for personal gain, which wasn't a good thing in the end. It was better to be low-key. "So," he asked tentatively, "Han Envoy, are you planning to promote copper coins on Judao?" "Ah, yes. Does Elder Niu have any advice?" Shu Ya was quite direct, admitting it outright. He couldn't very well deny it, having unloaded a ship full of coins in front of so many people today. Niu Wei hesitated for a moment, unsure what to say. He felt a bit agitated at this moment, secretly resenting you and Shu Ya. "Since you both knew I intended to defect to the Han tribe, couldn't you leave me with a final shred of dignity? Why don't you hurry up and try to win me over?" I would definitely agree immediately. However, that wasn't happening. Shu Ya just wouldn't say it, only focusing on eating peanuts, frowning and sipping the white liquor. Niu Wei grew anxious. Did they really have to make him say it himself? After all, saying it himself and being recruited by the other party were conceptually different. If the other party recruited him, perhaps with a few threats, and he agreed, that would be called being shishuwu, knowing how to adapt to circumstances, being a junji, person of outstanding talent. But if he proactively defected, that would make him a traitor. He wanted to join the Han tribe, but he didn't want to be a traitor, so he was very conflicted. This was like wanting to erect a monument to one's chastity after having been a prostitute. Difficult. Indeed. So he decided to hold out a little longer. Advice is too strong a word. I'm just a little worried that the Han envoy's currency might not be promoted effectively. If the Han tribe uses copper as money, the people of Judao also have quite a few bronze items. What if they come and use their bronze items to make a run on supplies and currency? Niu Wei continued to probe. Shu Ya still wore a smile, took another sip of white liquor and said, "Is Elder Niu threatening our Han tribe?" Niu Wei was genuinely angry. This was too much bullying. He was just giving them a heads up. How did that become a threat? Could they still be friends? Han Envoy is joking. How could this be a threat? Although Niu Wei is an elder of the Xin Tribe, I have sincerely studied in the Han Tribe for over a year, and have also come to greatly appreciate the Han Tribe's culture and way of life. If the Han Tribe were in trouble, as someone who is half Han Tribe, I certainly wouldn't want to see that. Just now, I merely wanted to give the Han Envoy a reminder. Furthermore, if the Han Tribe has any need, Niu Wei is also willing to contribute his meager efforts. After all, I have also lived in the Han Tribe for over a year. Trading goods with currency is both convenient and fair. The benefits of this currency are plain for all to see. Such a good thing should, of course, be promoted as soon as possible. As the Xin Tribe's elder of commerce, responsible for trade, seeing the inconvenience my clansmen face in their transactions, I deeply empathize. And am worried sick. Naturally, I hope that the Han Tribe's currency can be promoted on Judao sooner. For both public and private reasons, I cannot ignore this. Han Envoy, don't you agree? He had thrown caution to the wind. Apart from not explicitly saying he wanted to defect to the Han Tribe, he had basically said everything he could and couldn't say. The hint was so obvious, no, it was practically an explicit statement. If the other party still didn't agree after this, it would be truly outrageous. Oh, if you put it that way, then I misunderstood Elder Niu just now. Look at that. Only 2 sips of liquor, and my head is already getting muddled, Shu Ya said, chuckling. A misunderstanding, hey, the Han envoy must have misunderstood me. Niu Wei also played along, but his eyes were expectantly awaiting Shu Ya's reply. I have felt Elder Niu's passion for the Han tribe, and I can understand your hope that your own clansmen can live more conveniently. However, regarding the matter of promoting currency on Judao, the chieftain has already made thorough arrangements. There's no need to trouble Elder Niu to worry about it, Shu Ya said seriously. Slap. Niu Wei slammed his palm on the table. You all of you are bullying me too much. I've already humbled myself to this extent. I'm just short of directly calling the Han tribe daddy. What more do you want? Do you have to force me to say that sentence? Shu Ya, his face flushed from drinking, was startled by Niu Wei's sudden reaction. He slowly narrowed his eyes, staring intently at Niu Wei's face while quietly gripping his chopsticks in his hand. One had to know his name was Shu Ya, Beasttooth. He was the son of the Han tribe's second-to-last chieftain. Before the Han tribe had metal weapons. His most proficient weapon was the pair of long teeth his father had left him. Sharp objects like chopsticks were what he used most adeptly. Seeing Shu Ya's eyes, like a tiger staring at its prey, Niu Wei also panicked. A little, why on earth did he slam the table, really? Clang, creak. At this tense and awkward moment, the kitchen staff came in carrying 2 small dishes they had just prepared. Behind them followed 2 guards with drawn sabers, their eyes warily fixed on Niu Wei, while simultaneously looking to Shu Ya for instructions. With their peripheral vision, as if they would immediately pounce and kill him if Shu Ya just nodded, Niu Wei looked at the gleaming blades and instantly broke out in a cold sweat. It was too terrifying. He awkwardly rubbed the table, muttering to cover up, "Ah yeah, on such a cool day. There are actually mosquitoes in the room. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha." As he laughed, he even picked at his palm, as if he had really been swatting. Mosquito just now, putting on a convincing act, though his smile carried a hint of bitterness. Shu Ya waved his hand. The kitchen staff put down the dishes, then led the 2 guards out. The guards sheathed their sabers, and then closed the door to the room for the 2 of them again. Niu Wei chuckled awkwardly. Since the Han tribe had already rejected him, he was too embarrassed to continue sitting down for the meal. Looking at the situation outside, he worried he might lose his life if he stayed longer. Shu Ya also gradually reined in his playful mood. He had let the fish run a few times already. He couldn't let it run anymore or it would get off the hook. So he spoke. "Come, Elder Niu, sit down and eat." Niu Wei sat down awkwardly. He didn't dare not to sit. There were still 2 men with sabers outside. Does Elder Niu genuinely want to do something for the Han tribe? Shu Ya began to reel in the line. Of course. Niu Wei truly wishes to align with the Han tribe. I lived in the Han tribe for over a year, and the Han tribe treated me so well. Niu Wei should respond. If only as a way of repaying that kindness, Niu Wei eagerly expressed his determination. Then, I wonder in what capacity Elder Niu wishes to work for the Han tribe. As an elder of the Xin Tribe, or as a student of the Han tribe. Shu Ya had already pulled the fish out of the water. After Niu Wei declared his intention to defect, he didn't immediately go to find Chieftain Xin. Instead, he stayed at the mission's encampment because Shu Ya needed to first send you a letter, inform you of the situation, and then await your subsequent plans and arrangements for Niu Wei. Niu Wei had no objections to this. He was also happy to stay at the mission's encampment every day because it made him feel comfortable. Everything was convenient, much like when he lived in the Han tribe. If you asked him to go back and live in a bamboo stilt house now, he probably wouldn't be used to it. The letter was quickly sent back. By this time, you had already moved into the study of your new home to work. The house here was very tall, with glass windows that let in ample sunlight. At night, there were also powerful Dianshi lamps for illumination, giving him a slight feeling of returning to modern times. It felt familiar and gratifying. These were all achievements made through his own efforts. Xiao Die and Zhan Ying were playing with the two children in the living room. The two little ones stood in rattan walkers, vigorously pedaling their little legs, running around very mischievously. Meanwhile, you were dealing with matters related to the autumn harvest, winter, storage and grain allocation for the various prefectures and counties. The Han tribe's territory was now larger, but not every place produced grain. For example, Xingang Prefecture, Dongxin Prefecture, and Huxin Dao, Lake Center Island, one a steel-making iron mine, one a coal-digging coal mine, and the last a chemical plant in a swampy area. These three places were not suitable for growing grain, yet they were crucial and had large populations. Therefore, the grain needed for these places could only be transferred from elsewhere. The autumn grain from each prefecture and county needed to be harvested and dried as soon as possible, and the tax grain promptly delivered to the granaries. The grain depots in various places also had to prepare to purchase surplus grain from the common people. Because the Han tribe cultivated high-yield crops like rice and corn, which had substantial yields, a family with 20 to 30 mu, a unit of land approximately 1/6 of an acre, of land couldn't possibly consume all the grain they grew. After paying a portion of the grain tax and setting aside their own rations, the rest could be sold directly. This constituted the main annual income for an ordinary farming household. After the grain was collected through taxes and purchases, the tax grain would be directly sealed and stored, not to be used without special circumstances. The rest of the grain, acquired through grain depots, would then be allocated to the three main regions: Xingang Prefecture, Dongxin Prefecture, and Huxin Dao. However, this grain was not distributed unconditionally, but was sold there at fair prices. These three places, one for coal mining, one for steel making, and one for chemical production, although they didn't produce grain, had a very large number of workers. They usually worked for the tribe, and the tribe also paid them wages. These wages were enough for them to support their families, so the grain would not be given away for free. Instead, they were expected to buy it with their own money, as the Hai tribe had already paid them. This matter involved the allocation of supplies and grain within all territories belonging to the Han tribe. The authority level was very high, and many departments were involved. It was considered a very important operation, requiring you to personally command and coordinate it. At times like these, you would lament that the administrative system was still not perfect enough. If things continued like this, you would be exhausted to death. With you as the central authority, the Han tribe had established a system of prefectures and counties for decentralized governance. There were quite a few local officials, generally capable of handling various affairs. However, there were too few officials in the central government, and too few high-ranking officials capable of handling major matters. So, although things seemed to run smoothly below, you were indeed swamped with work. It wasn't that you were reluctant to delegate power, but rather that there was no one suitable to use. A high minister dealing with important state affairs couldn't possibly be ignorant of everything. Therefore, they still needed to be sent to the grassroots level for tempering, starting with familiarizing themselves with local government affairs. Otherwise, if you brought a youngster straight out of school directly into the central government, they wouldn't even know the procedures of local governance. So how could they help you command and coordinate all the prefectures and counties? However, he had already made a plan. The Han tribe had been establishing prefectures and counties for several years. Dashu, the oldest prefect of Liuyang Prefecture, had also been in office for several years. It was appropriate to promote a batch of people from below, and then transfer these local administrative heads back to his side to serve. Having made up your mind, you quickly got busy. But not long after, a junior official delivered Shu Ya's letter to your desk. You read the report about Niu Wei's defection with a knowing smile. He had guessed that this fellow, knowing it was a fatal jump, would have no choice but to leap in. Sure enough, he had jumped in because he had no other option. As for what exactly to have Niu Wei do, he hadn't decided yet. After all, he had never been to Judao, and his understanding of the situation there was always based on hearsay. Therefore, at this time, Niu Wei, as the Xin Tribe's elder of commerce, was very important. Because he was a high-ranking member of the Xin Tribe, his knowledge of the Xin Tribe and Judao was far greater than others. Consequently, you didn't offer any opinions. Instead, you wrote back directly, asking Niu Wei for his views. You asked him to consider from the Han tribe's perspective if there were any ways to smoothly take over Judao. Then you would compare his ideas with your original plans and use whichever was better. Of course, even if Niu Wei's method was adopted, your plan could continue to be implemented. His method was very gentle, adopting a boiling a frog in lukewarm water style of cultural transformation, fundamentally turning Judao into Han tribe territory. This was something that had to be implemented anyway, whether now or in the future. The letter was quickly sent back. Then Shu Ya and Niu Wei were dumbfounded, asking Niu Wei for his method. What method could Niu Wei possibly have? Niu Wei himself couldn't figure out what method he had, so he began to ponder wildly. What did the Han chieftain mean by this? Was he testing me? Did he want me to do some small tasks first, to test my loyalty? To see my determination to betray the Xin tribe? Or was he simply asking me for an idea? Or did he want to use this opportunity to test my abilities, to see if I was capable of shouldering great responsibilities? Niu Wei's thoughts diverged. He thought it all over and finally felt that perhaps all these elements were present. So what kind of idea should he propose? Firstly, the task must be able to demonstrate loyalty. Then, it must quickly bring down the Xin tribe. No, it must quickly gain actual control of Judao. Finally, this matter must also allow him to obtain sufficient benefits. I've got it. This is how we'll do it. Niu Wei quickly wrote a letter himself, then handed it to Shu Ya, asking him to deliver it to the chieftain on his behalf. Shu Ya glanced at the contents of the letter, puzzled. His eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. Elder Niu, can it be done? Isn't it too risky? It might be risky for others, but for Niu Wei it is foolproof. Han Envoy, don't forget, I am now the Xin tribe's elder of commerce. Above me there is only Chieftain Xin, Niu Wei said with great confidence. Well then, since elder Yu insists, I will forward it to the chieftain for his consideration. Shu Ya had no choice but to send the letter back with an uneasy heart. He felt that Judao might be on the verge of a major upheaval. Something truly significant was about to happen.